christiangeekcentral.com.
Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Ready or Not? Is this too close to me? Let me adjust this a little bit. Stick around and find out. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Ready or Not. The synopsis on IMDb, if I combine two of them anyway, reads, "A bride's wedding night takes a sinister turn when her eccentric new in-laws force her to take part in a terrifying game. Ready or Not follows a young bride as she joins her new husband's rich, eccentric family in a time-honored tradition that turns into a lethal game with everyone fighting for their survival." It's a little bit more cat and mouse, like all of them, are trying to get her. Basically, the gimmick, which is revealed in the trailer if you haven't seen it, is that they have this ritual anytime anyone enters the family, which is that basically they give them a chance to run and hide from them throughout the house all night long. If they survive till dawn, then great, but the goal of the family is to kill them, and the reasons why and all that kind of stuff are revealed in the movie. I would describe this one as like a comedy horror, but with horror being the dominant genre. It very briefly sets up the premise with most, and it has most of the 91-minute runtime spent on the cat and mouse chase between the psychotic family and the new bride. It has some Die Hard inspirations too, as the bride, in her struggle to escape and survive and run around the house, she's being progressively injured and worn down throughout. And so if you like that, if you like seeing your hero kind of beat up and struggling and it getting harder and harder for them, there's definitely something to enjoy and appreciate in this one. I cringed big time at some of the things that she had to endure and some of the injuries that she received. Ugh, I mean, I was almost curled up in a ball once or twice. They also played into the drama really well, I think, despite the really bizarre premise and the crazy characters. Well, when I say crazy character, I mean that they are, mentally ill, but I don't think they were bonkers or weird enough, in my opinion. My preference, as a default, is for things to be, serious and to have that drama in there, but I might have enjoyed the family members being more uniquely bizarre and outstandingly eccentric. The comedy also usually fell flat for me, and I don't think just because my tastes in humor are pretty narrow and specific compared to other people's, punchlines leaned heavily on just kind of expletives, just rough language, which, that can sometimes get a laugh from me if it's delivered well. It really depends on the actor's delivery for me. But it just lacked in this movie for me, like a punch and certainly creativity in the writing and the punchlines themselves, which is basically just, expletives. And I need something more than that to get, for that kind of a line to get a laugh out of me. It reminded me of kind of like boring stand-up comedians who don't really have cleverly written, uniquely written material, and so they just kind of throw in swear words to try and get a reaction. It's not that I'm offended. I watch plenty of movies that have a lot of rough language in them, but when you lean on it for a joke, it almost always falls flat for me, and it really did in this case. I did think the performances were all fine, but as I said, I wish the characters had been more extreme, and maybe that was on the director's end, that he didn't want them to be as extreme as they could have been, or maybe it was on the actor's end. I wonder. There were some initial moments between the new husband and his new wife as she discovers just the horror of her situation that was played really well, I thought, for drama between those two actors, and so I really did appreciate that. But I like it when a movie can kind of surprise me in its tone and go from something really heavy and serious or scary to like bizarrely funny, and I wish this would have been that kind of experience with those two extremes, happening in it for me, but it didn't work out. I do wonder what this movie would have been like if it was cast with an ensemble of exclusively comedic actors as the in-laws, instead of the choices they made, which involved a number of actors I've seen in other things that aren't really known for their comedy, So different different casting I would have been really interested in. As far as the stunts and visuals, it's a horror movie that leans heavily on, gore effects and stuff, and so there's lots of practical effects. The digital work is sparse by comparison and pretty subtle, mostly to get objects to puncture bodies and stuff like that, that you can't do with real actors. Lots of gore effects and blood, done realistically enough to keep me squirming instead of me kind of disconnecting and be like, well, that's CG blood, that blood spray wasn't there, or whatever, As far as the themes, is there anything that might stimulate some worthwhile thought or conversation about moral or spiritual issues of any kind? The main theme is a play on the reality faced by those who marry into families and discover strange or troubling things about their new in-laws, or even just quirky things that they have to get used to. This is just this super duper amplified play on that very common reality. It also touches a little bit on communication between maybe those who are dating or those who are married, and just the importance of just being open and honest and communicating the important things that the other person should know about you or your family or whatever. I'm just putting all that on the table instead of hiding parts of yourself because you're afraid that they will judge you. I mean, if you are afraid to share something with someone because you think that they will judge you, then your relationship with them really isn't that close. And if you're entering into a dating relationship with an eye on potential marriage in the future, or if you're already married, then you ought to be developing the kind of relationship that both people can be completely open and honest and give grace to each other and forgive each other, not accepting, all the things that are wrong with each other, but accepting them despite the things that are broken or wrong about them. So maybe there's a little bit of comment or metaphor or, illustration that you could, use this movie for, but it's not a movie that's seriously commenting on anything. It's not teaching anything. It's just reacting more than teaching to a common experience of married people by creating a completely bonkers scenario to represent that. Satan worship is also a significant element of the story, which may be troubling to some. I was briefly taken out of the movie just kind of wondering how closely they represented true Satanism, since that's not been a topic of study for me or research for me. But it certainly is treated as something foolish and dangerous to get involved in, rather than glamorizing it or making it appealing, I think, in any way. Now, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, skip this one. I know, kind of a bummer, because the trailer did kind of hook you in a little bit with what looked like a really unique and bonkers premise. But for your taste, this movie just really falls short of its potential given the premise. It's interesting enough and will have you even cringing and on the edge of your seat with tension, but the whole thing is far less than the sum of its parts and is going to be easily and quickly forgotten by you, unfortunately. You can get my spoiler-filled reactions to Ready or Not in my Spoiler Car video series. That's just one of many perks available for your support at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. This one's rated R for violence, bloody images, language throughout, and some drug use. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that notification bell to stay connected with what's going on here. And then I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. christiangeekcentral.com